My name is Olivia Parker. I'm 32 years old and currently live in Asheville, a small city nestled in the mountains of North Carolina, where art and nature blend seamlessly. I work as a lead designer at a media firm, specializing in branding and user experience. The job demands precision and finesse, two qualities I've always taken pride in bringing to every part of my life. After nearly 5 years together, Daniel Brooks and I just got engaged. He's an architect, calm, thoughtful, and grounded. We met at a sustainability design conference. He was the speaker. I was sketching ideas from the back row. One glance, one folded handout, and everything began. Our wedding is set for early spring. We chose a small garden outside the city. Not flashy, not extravagant, but intimate and warm. Daniel loves open space. I love natural light. It's a place that perfectly reflects the quiet, steady love we've built. My family lives in Greensboro, about a 2-hour drive away. My mother, Marilyn, was a former elementary school teacher, strict, rule-bound, and the type who liked to control everything down to the tiniest detail. My father, Gerald, is quieter, usually avoiding conflict through silence. And then there's Savannah, my younger sister by 4 years. She used to be our mother's golden child. She studied fashion in New York but dropped out after 2 years. Since then, it's been a string of short-lived business ventures, from a nail salon to a personal blog, all ended quietly, leaving behind nothing but invoices. We were never close. I've always been the planner, the one who worked hard, saved every penny, and prepared for the future. Savannah is impulsive, idealistic, and convinced the world should rearrange itself to suit her needs. What exhausts me isn't just our differences. It's how my mother constantly shields her, enabling every mistake. No matter how many times Savannah stirs up trouble, our mom always covers for her. So when our engagement party came around that evening, I didn't expect much from my family. I just hoped for a peaceful night, a chance to set aside all the old cracks and enjoy a meaningful moment with people who genuinely cared about me. The restaurant we chose was right in downtown Asheville. It had a cozy atmosphere, with warm lights spilling softly over tables dressed in pale pink roses and glass candle holders. Daniel held my hand as we walked in. His gaze made the whole room fade away. Guests had already settled in. The colleagues, old college friends, his family, and a few close relatives. I scanned the room and spotted my mother adjusting a napkin like she was preparing for an inspection. My father gave me a small nod and smile. And Savannah, as expected, was glued to her phone, wearing the bored expression of someone dragged there against her will. I took a long breath. I had really tried to believe that today would be different, that this party would be only about love, about our beginning, and not the same old undercurrents that had worn me down for years. I was wrong. I had just raised my glass to say thank you when my mother stood up and gently tapped her wine glass. The sharp clink cut through the room, bringing all conversations to a halt. Every eye turned toward her. "First of all," she said, lips smiling but eyes colder than usual, "congratulations to Olivia and Daniel. I hope your marriage is filled with love and patience." There was polite applause. I smiled, though something in me paused at how she lingered on the word patience. It felt more like a warning than a wish. What she said next hit like a punch to the chest. "And since this is a special occasion," she continued, setting her glass down, "your father and I have decided to transfer Olivia's $40,000 wedding fund to Savannah. She's getting married soon too, and her financial situation isn't as fortunate as her sister's." The entire room froze. I stood motionless, lips parted but unable to speak. People at nearby tables glanced at one another, thinking it must be a joke. Some even chuckled. But I knew one thing for sure. My mother never joked about money. I took a deep breath, trying to stay composed. "Mom, that money is mine. It was transferred to my personal account when I turned 18. I used part of it for public college, saved most of it, and planned every detail of my wedding. She tilted her head, utterly unfazed. You already have enough. A stable job, a successful fiancé, and a comfortable life. Your sister, Savannah, is struggling. You should have offered to share long ago. My throat tightened. My body burned with anger. That's when Savannah shot to her feet, her eyes defiant. You're so selfish. You always think you're better than everyone. I need that money and you know it. No, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. You don't need my money. You need to learn how to take responsibility for your own life. My mother stepped closer. Her eyes darkened as if I had betrayed the entire bloodline. You're unbelievable. Your sister lives simply. She doesn't scheme like you. Don't think that just because you make money, you get to look down on others. Daniel squeezed my hand under the table, but I pulled away. I needed to face this on my own. I planned this wedding with care and thoughtfulness, I said, raising my voice just enough. I haven't been wasteful. Savannah spent her entire fund on vanity projects and now blames everyone else for not bailing her out. My mother threw me one final glare before raising her hand. The slap came fast, hard, and full of humiliation. The sound echoed across the restaurant. I staggered slightly, my hand flying to my cheek. My ears rang. No one said a word. No one moved. Even Savannah stood frozen, pale as a ghost. I turned back to face my mother. You don't get to hit me just because I said no. There was a noise behind the bar. I heard someone making a call. Yes. I'd like to report an assault at Rosewood Restaurant. A woman just slapped her daughter in front of everyone. Who? My mother snapped her head around. Who dares? A young waiter stepped out from the shadows. I called, and I'll testify. Daniel stood, wrapping his arms around me from behind. We're not going to stay silent about this. Moments later, red and blue lights flickered outside the windows. 2 officers entered, spoke briefly with the manager, then approached our table. One of them asked, gently but firmly, Mrs. Olivia Parker, would you like to file a report for what just happened? I nodded. My voice was steady now. Yes, I would. My mother turned to leave, but the officer stepped in front of her. Ma'am, Marilyn Parker, you'll need to come with us. You're being detained for assault. The guests erupted into hushed murmurs. Some stared at their plates, others looked directly at me. Savannah ran after our mother, shouting, You're heartless! I looked at her, saying nothing, and I wasn't backing down. That entire night, I couldn't sleep. My cheek still burned from the slap, but the real ache was somewhere deeper. A fracture inside me that silence or compromise could no longer repair. The next morning, I went to the law office. The woman Daniel had recommended was named Clara Jennings, a woman in her early 40s with deep brown hair, thin-rimmed glasses, and an unwavering gaze. After listening to everything I'd been through, Clara simply said, You did the right thing by not staying silent. We're going to see this through. That very day, we filed a lawsuit against my mother for assault in a public setting, with full witness statements and testimony from the restaurant staff. The case was quickly accepted by the court, as surveillance footage had captured the entire incident. 3 weeks later, Marilyn Parker appeared in court. I sat at the plaintiff's bench next to Clara. Daniel held my hand through the entire hearing. When the judge asked my mother to stand, she never once looked at me. Her attorney argued that it was an emotional reaction in a family dispute and that it shouldn't be criminalized. But when the video played, the slap, the sharp sound in that elegant dining room, the stunned faces of the guests, it said everything that needed to be said. The judge ruled that public assault is against the law, regardless of family ties. My mother was fined $2,000, sentenced to 6 months of probation, and ordered to complete an 8-week anger management course. She avoided jail time since it was a first offense, but she was barred from contacting me for the duration of her probation. She let the judge mandate that all members of the public would. I didn't feel victorious or vindicated, but I did feel lighter. I had finally drawn a line she couldn't cross. I thought it would end there. I was wrong. 2 weeks later, a thick envelope arrived at my home address. The sender was Whitman and Howe Law Office. A familiar name, since my father had once worked there as an internal accountant. Inside was a lawsuit from my own parents, demanding the return of the $40,000 fund, claiming it was meant for education, not a wedding, and that I had misused it. I let out a soft laugh, not out of humor, but helplessness. That money, as I knew and could prove, was a custodial account opened in my name when I was 17, with clear terms that I would have full control once I became an adult. I called Clara. "They're really dragging you to court just because they can't control your money anymore," she said. "But I'm not worried. They have no legal grounds. They're using the court as a pressure tactic." And that's exactly what the next few months were. My parents showed up to every preliminary hearing, always accompanied by Savannah, who wore flashy outfits and gave me smug glances. She never spoke, but her eyes played the victim. At one hearing, their lawyer tried to argue that, from the start, the family only intended the money to support Olivia's college expenses, not to give her complete control to use it for a wedding. Clara stood up and presented the court with account statements, the original custodial agreement, and email correspondence between me and the bank from 7 years ago, confirming that I had full legal authority over the account starting at age 18. "Your Honor," Clara said, "this was not a loan nor a conditional trust. This was a gift, clearly designated with no restrictions. What the plaintiffs are trying to do is reclaim a gift they no longer approve of, simply because they disapprove of how the defendant chose to use it." A heavy silence filled the courtroom. I looked at my father. He stared at the floor, eyes reddened. My mother remained expressionless, as if everything was unfolding exactly as planned. I knew then. This wasn't about the law. They were punishing me for not being obedient. And Savannah, she still believed she deserved everything. I gripped Daniel's hand. This battle was far from over, but I was prepared for every part of it. I had thought that after the drawn-out hearings and legal chaos, my family would stop. That the damage they'd done was enough to make anyone reflect. I was too naive. One quiet weekend afternoon, while Daniel and I were reviewing vendor lists for the wedding, my phone rang. It was Melissa, my cousin from Raleigh. Her voice was gentle, almost cautious. "Olivia, are you okay?" I blinked, sensing something was off. "Why wouldn't I be?" "Because word is you and Daniel called off the engagement." I froze. "Who said that?" Alyssa hesitated. "Your mom. Last week, she called my mom, and now a few of the aunts know. She said Daniel caught you with someone else, that you cheated, and the wedding was canceled." I nearly dropped the phone. Within the next 30 minutes, I received 3 more calls and 2 messages from old friends, confused, concerned. One college friend sent a screenshot of an email that looked exactly like my address, stating that the wedding between Olivia Parker and Daniel Brooks has officially been canceled due to personal reasons. The final line read, "We apologize for any disappointment this may cause." I checked my email account. There was nothing in the sent folder, no drafts, no unusual login activity. Someone had created a fake account to impersonate me. It felt like I had been yanked out of reality. Only one name rang clearly in my head: Savannah. When Daniel got home, I handed him my phone. He scrolled through the messages and screenshots, his expression darkening with every swipe. "We have to deal with this," he said, voice tight as a wire. I nodded, but I didn't expect what came next to be even worse. The following day, Daniel received a message from an unknown number with several photos attached. In the photos, it was me, or rather, someone, with my poorly edited face, acting intimately with a strange man at a cafe. The image was clearly fake. The proportions didn't match. The lighting was off, and the facial expression was so stiff it was laughable. Attached was a caption. "Now you know the truth. She doesn't deserve you." Danielle handed me the phone without saying a word. I looked at the photo, then at him. He was silent for a few seconds, then quietly said, "They really think I'd fall for a cheap Photoshop job like this?" I burst into tears, not out of pain, but because I knew he still chose to believe in me, even in the middle of the chaos my family had created. We immediately reported the fake email to the provider's tech support, contacted our attorney to document the defamation, and hired a digital forensics expert to trace the fake account. Within a week, we confirmed that the email had been sent from a device located in Charlotte, the city where Savannah lived. While we had no direct proof of who sent it, every trail led back to her. Once again, when they couldn't take me down legally, they resorted to their oldest weapons: gossip and manipulation. Daniel personally reached out to all our guests, sending a formal letter confirming the wedding was still happening as scheduled, along with an apology for the false information that had recently circulated. Most people were supportive. Many even admitted they had sensed something wasn't right. As for me, I didn't have the energy to be angry anymore. My mind felt numb. One evening, while we were eating dinner in silence, Daniel looked up and asked, "Do you think they'll stop?" I looked at him, my eyes tired but steady. "No, but I don't think they can hurt me the way they used to. Because for the first time in my life, I no longer feared what they thought, what they said, or what stories they tried to fabricate. Because I had Daniel, I had the truth, and most importantly, I still had myself. That morning, I woke up to a feeling I hadn't known in a long time: peace. No anonymous messages, no fake emails, no fresh rumors. Just sunlight spilling through the window, the scent of jasmine tea, and Isabel, my best friend, whispering from outside the bridal suite door. "The bride ready yet?" I smiled, stood up, and gently pulled back the curtain to see the garden below. Rows of white chairs lined the green grass, and a wooden arch wrapped in soft white vines and lavender stood at the altar. Everything looked just as Daniel and I had planned: simple, graceful, and genuine. We had hired 2 private security guards, both experienced in handling private events. One managed the guest list at the main entrance, the other patrolled the back areas and service gate. I knew it might seem excessive, but after everything that had happened, I couldn't afford to take chances. 3 days earlier, Daniel and I had sent a formal notice to my family. Marilyn, Gerald, and Savannah were not permitted to attend the wedding, for the emotional well-being of the bride. There was no response to the letter. The ceremony began at 2 p.m. Guests arrived one by one, pleasantly surprised by how private and serene the setting was. Every smile, every blessing felt sincere and heartfelt. No one brought up the drama from before. There was only the soft strumming of a guitar and the breeze weaving through the loosely tied ribbons on the chairs. I was adjusting my veil when one of the security guards knocked gently at the door, speaking in a low voice. "Ms. Olivia, we just detained a woman at the back gate. She tried to climb over the side fence near the parking lot. Her appearance matches the photo you provided." I gripped the edge of the chair. "Savannah?" "Yes, and she was carrying a backpack. Inside, we found a can of black spray paint, 3 uncapped bottles of perfume, and a pair of crafting scissors. She said she was here to fix a few things. We've kept her outside the property." I couldn't speak. Part of me wanted to go out there and face her, to look her in the eye and ask, "What were you planning? Spray paint my dress? Cut up my bouquet? Drench the aisle in heavy perfume?" But I didn't go out. I simply said to the guard, "Please escort her off the property. Don't call the police, but under no circumstances should she be allowed back in." He nodded. "Understood. We'll take care of it quietly." Sat down, placed my hand on my chest. My heart was pounding, but it wasn't fear anymore, it was sadness. Isabel walked in and took my hand. "What's wrong?" I looked at her, voice hoarse. Savannah was just stopped outside. She had spray paint and scissors with her. Isabel didn't flinch. She just nodded slowly. So it's really gotten this bad. Then she squeezed my hand firmly. But today is still your day, and no one, not even family, gets to steal that from you. As the music began and I walked down the aisle, arm in arm with my uncle, the one who stepped in for my father, I felt every loving gaze from the rows of chairs. The people who truly cared were here, no one else. Daniel stood beneath the floral arch, his eyes lighting up the moment he saw me. He didn't need to say anything. I knew he understood exactly what it had taken for me to reach this moment. The ceremony unfolded in the soft sunlight, our vows ringing clear among the flowers and breeze. When the officiant said, "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the garden erupted in applause. No one mentioned those who weren't there, and they didn't need to. We had chosen who would remain, and they were enough. We didn't go far for a honeymoon. After the wedding, Daniel and I spent a week at a small lakeside cabin on Lake Lure, where birds flitted past the porch each morning, the sunset melted over the water like honey, and there wasn't a single bar of cell service. We called it our rumor-free week. No anonymous messages, no fake emails, no waking up with the sense of being watched or bracing for yet another fake social media account. I slept. I laughed. I breathed. I loved. Without defense. When we returned to Asheville, we started our new life using the rest of the $40,000 wedding fund as a down payment on a 2-bedroom apartment in Forest Hill, about 15 minutes from downtown. It wasn't flashy, but it was full of light, with a wide balcony just big enough for 2 lavender pots and a small wooden coffee table. Our first home. Not just mine, but ours. I hung our wedding photos in the hallway. I framed Daniel's handwritten vows in a piece of oak and set it above the bed. On weekends, we painted the living room, built bookshelves, and had tiny arguments over how crooked the wall clock looked. Nothing was perfect. Everything was simple, and that's what made me feel free. One early June afternoon, I was picking out fabric for curtains when Rachel, my cousin, called. "Did you hear the news?" I already knew it wouldn't be good. "What news?" "Savannah's getting married. Next month. In Charlotte." I said nothing. "Aunt Marilyn and Uncle Gerald are planning everything. I heard they took out a pretty big loan from a local bank. The wedding's at the Lexington Grand Ballroom. Live music, imported flowers from Italy, 6-course dinner." I wasn't surprised. "And?" "They hired a PR person to improve Savannah's image, after all those unfortunate misunderstandings." I let out a soft smile, not out of sarcasm, just because there was nothing left to care about. "Did you get an invite?" Rachel asked. I shook my head. "No. But even if they did invite me, I wouldn't go." Rachel sighed. "I think over 10 relatives declined. A few even said straight out they didn't want to attend the wedding of someone who tried to ruin her own sisters." I didn't say anything more. I already understood that better than anyone. From that day on, I stopped asking or checking in on anything about my family. I didn't block them, didn't delete their numbers, didn't move. But I didn't open any doors either. Because I'd learned one thing. Forgiveness is mine to give. But trust has to be rebuilt through actions, and once it's lost, it's hard to earn back. That Thanksgiving, Daniel and I hosted a small dinner for the people who had stood by us through everything. Isabel brought wine. Rachel showed up with homemade pumpkin pie. Uncle Brian, the one who walked me down the aisle, carried a wooden box engraved with the words, "Family isn't who you're born to. It's who shows up." I cried when I opened it. Inside was a laminated copy of our marriage certificate, along with a photo of the 3 of us at the wedding. I didn't need blood ties. I didn't need a crowd of applause. I just needed people who truly loved me. Real love. One day, while we were repainting the living room door, Daniel asked, "Do you think things could ever get better with your family someday?" I paused, looked at him without flinching. Maybe. But if it does, it won't be because I waited. It'll be because they changed, and if they don't, I'll still be okay. And that was the truth. I was okay. Because after everything, I didn't just walk away with Daniel, a roof over my head, or a bank account no one could contest. I walked away with a stronger version of myself, clearer, steadier, and no longer willing to trade peace for a place at a toxic table. I had learned how to set boundaries, when to close doors, and most importantly, how to love myself without needing permission from people who treated love like a bargaining chip. The sky had just turned dark, and a light rain began tapping gently on the roof of our new apartment. I sat by the window, a warm cup of cocoa in hand, eyes following the steady trail of raindrops on the glass. Daniel was in the kitchen, humming one of his favorite songs. The scent of cinnamon waffles filled the room. I thought about everything that had happened in the past year. The slap that left my cheek burning, but woke me up. The rumors, anonymous letters, fake emails, doctored photos. All the tactics meant to tear me down, but never succeeded. The courtroom, where I stood not only to protect my assets, but something far more important, my boundaries. I used to believe that being part of a family meant enduring, sacrificing, staying quiet, because that's blood. But I learned that blood is never a valid excuse for someone to hurt you repeatedly without consequence. Daniel sat beside me, placed a tray of waffles on the table, and took my hand. He didn't say anything. He just looked at me, calm, steady, warm, as always. I finally spoke. Softly but firmly. You know, I used to think that money was just for a wedding. Daniel tilted his head, waiting. But it was a test, a boundary, a choice between living to please others or living with self-respect. I chose myself. That $40,000 fund my parents gave me wasn't just for wedding plans or a down payment. It was a symbol, a tool they tried to use to manipulate, to bargain, to force loyalty. And when I chose to protect it legally, it became the key that freed me from the unspoken rule that the eldest daughter must always give in. I didn't win because I got a husband or a house. I won because I refused to surrender to emotional control disguised as family duty. Family isn't just who you're born to. It's where you're safe to be who you are. It's where silence isn't traded for love. It's where boundaries are honored and feelings aren't dismissed with, "You're overreacting." I lost a lot on this journey. Comfort, shared meals, holiday traditions. But what I gained was worth far more. A life built on clarity, real love, and mental freedom. Someone once asked me, if they apologized, would you forgive them? I thought long and hard, and now I know I can forgive. But forgiveness doesn't mean going back. It means moving forward without carrying someone else's weight. And if they truly change, the door is open. But I won't open it again if what's on the other side is still a storm. One late summer day, I was walking alone at the local farmer's market. An elderly woman was selling small bundles of lavender, tied with twine and brown paper. I picked one up and noticed a handwritten sign beside it. "Love is freedom, not a leash." I bought it, not for the fragrance, but for that message. It felt like a letter to the old version of myself, the girl who once believed keeping a family meant losing herself. I had survived courtrooms, sleepless nights, disturbing phone calls, but now I sit here, peaceful and whole, not because I was lucky, funny, but because I stood up, because I chose the harder path, the right one. And if anyone reading this finds themselves in a family full of cracks too deep to mend, I want you to know, setting boundaries isn't a mistake. Protecting your peace doesn't make you selfish. Walking away from pain isn't a sign of ingratitude. Living with integrity doesn't require anyone's approval. What truly matters is knowing your worth and honoring it. Olivia's story isn't just a personal journey. It's a powerful reminder for anyone stuck in toxic relationships disguised as family. Blood isn't a reason to stay silent or sacrifice endlessly. Respect, boundaries, and honesty are the real foundations of kinship. Standing up isn't about fighting your family. It's about protecting your dignity and your right to live by your own truth. Sometimes, freedom begins the moment you learn to say no. What do you think of Olivia's decision? Would you have done the same in her place? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more powerful, emotional stories about family, boundaries, and healing.